In a moment, the business news with Egon Cossou. First, a look at the headlines here on Afternoon Live. Firefighters are assisting the other emergency services following a mid-air collision between a light aircraft and a helicopter in Buckinghamshire. More work to be done. Theresa May and the European Council President agree a bigger effort is needed to advance Brexit talks. Robert Mugabe makes his first public appearance since the army took control of the Zimbabwean government. Negotiations are ongoing.
Hello there, here are the business headlines here on Afternoon Live. Well, shares in the construction firm Carillion have taken a real beating. They plunged 30% after it issued another profit warning. Nissan is in talks with suppliers and dealers over compensation for the recall of more than 1 million cars over quality control concerns. Compensation is being decided on a case-by-case basis. While the Citizen Advice Bureau is calling for a ban on automatic increases in credit card limits. It says more than 1 million people with financial difficulties have had their limits increased without their consent.
Egon, I want to talk about house building. We're always told how important it is. What's the best way to achieve that? Because I know people have been discussing that today.
Well, that's right. This is very much a job for the National Infrastructure Commission. Now, they think they've come up with a winning formula. So they've been looking at that area between Oxford, Cambridge and Milton Keynes, which is a pretty thriving area.
It's called an ARC, isn't it?
It's called the ARC,
yeah.
That's right, yeah. So what they've said is what they want to see happen is they want the government to pledge to really boost the transport infrastructure there. So more new roads, more new train lines, and in return, it really wants the local authorities to double the amount of houses that they're building. So that's the kind of quid pro quo, if I can say it, that we're talking about.
I won't ask you to say it again.
I'm not going to say it again.
So the economic impact?
Well, according to the Commission, the impact would be huge. Now, as I said, the area is really thriving. The Commission reckons that if these measures are implemented, it would boost the local economy from 90 billion to 250 billion pounds a year. So let's not just hear from me. Let's have a listen to the man who's actually running the Commission, and that's Lord Adonis.
Yes, the big problem in this ARC, which as you say is one of the most economically successful parts of the country, is that we don't have enough houses, not nearly enough houses. House prices in Oxford and Cambridge are higher now than most parts of London, and that's saying something because that's the highest in the country. So there's a real issue, and the question is, how do we get house building significantly increased, including being prepared to set up new towns? I mean, Milton Keynes, which is a city now of nearly 300,000 residents, is one of the most successful places in the country. And being right in the middle of the country, it's a great place to be. And so there's an opportunity to do more of that too. And the answer is we have to put infrastructure investment, including new railways and roads, in ahead of expecting local authorities to agree to new housing. And there's a deal to be done here between the government and the local authorities. The government agrees to upgrade the infrastructure with a new railway line between Oxford, Milton Keynes and Cambridge. And I say a new railway line, in fact, there was one there 50 years ago, but it was closed after the beaching cuts. But if that's put in place, that will transform connections between the towns and cities across this arc. Oxford, Bicester, Milton Keynes, Bedford, Sandy, Cambridge, all hugely important residential centres. If that's put in place with the road infrastructure, then I believe it will be possible for the local authorities to agree more housing, and this will be a win-win.
Lord Adonis there.
Win-win. Let's leave house building in the UK, move over to the US. Tax reform. This was a big thing for Donald Trump, but where are we with that?
Absolutely huge. Now, this is a massive proposal, $1.5 trillion. That's what it's worth. Sure. And if it does go through, it'll be the biggest tax shake-up over there since the 1980s. Now, it's just passed a crucial vote in the House of Representatives. Let's catch up with Samira Hussain, who's in New York, and find out more about this. Samira, this has been passed relatively quickly. How comes?
Well, they're under a tight deadline. Now, remember, President Trump said that he wants to see a signable bill on his desk by Christmas. So that means they really need to get the ball rolling. And so you saw this really push through the House really very quickly, despite the fact that you had all Democrats voting against the bill, and you also had 12 Republicans that were voting against this particular bill. But all they needed was some simple majority, and that's indeed what they got in the House.
I'm sure that's not the end of the story. what happens next?
So now bigger challenges, and that's really what traders here are looking towards, is what's going to happen in the Senate. The Senate bill is looking a lot more complicated, and there's already some Republicans that are speaking out against the bill. So it's going to be hard work to try and get that through the Senate. That's due to happen after the Thanksgiving holiday, so in about 2 weeks' time. Then you're left with a House bill and a Senate bill, but the two need to come together at some point in order for the president to be able to sign just one bill.
So, Mary, will it just be the Democrats voting against this, do you think?
No, I mean, we've already heard from some Republicans that are already against it. As we know, there are Republicans in the House that voted against it. So there's going to be quite a big fight in terms of trying to get something together. And look, if we look at the past few months, they haven't really had, the House and the Senate, the Congress hasn't really had any big legislative wins. And so it's really going to be a tough fight to try and get those two very different tax bills to one piece of paper for the president to sign come Christmas.
Samara, thanks very much indeed.
Came at the right time.
Wandering by.
Yes, exactly. Let's have a look at the market. So you mentioned Carillion at the top, didn't you?
That's right. As I was saying, look, it's really taking having a really terrible time on the markets at the moment. It's announced that it's got pretty huge debts, and it's also said it's not going to make as much money as it had in fact hoped. So its shares are doing particularly badly there. Better story though for Sky. Its shares are really getting an uplift from speculation that Comcast, the big US cable company, might be buying a big chunk of it.
Oh gosh, okay. And do we do markets? Should we have a look at them?
Well,
sorry, I mean the currencies. Maybe not. Next hour.
Let's do it the next time,
That'll give us something to look forward to. Egon.
It's a deal. I'll be back.
Lovely. See you then. Thanks for that.